Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and this is Hitesh Agrawal, and today we are going to discuss the topic of domains, well, ADDS domains and domain controllers. It's not a very big topic. I will explain as I'm configuring it. So today's agenda is just simply we're going to configure our servers as a domain controller, and I'm just going to explain what it is that we are doing while we're doing it. So yeah, so let's get straight into that part. So we're back here in our servers where you have our SRVDC1 or Site 1 DC, Site 2 DC, and Site 3 DC. So we're going to first start off by configuring our DC1. And if you remember last time, we left off some configuration because that's when we actually do it. So when we go here, and you will see in a second, well, let's wait for it to load first. Okay, so when we see here, we have these notifications that it's showing us. It's showing, we need to configure this site as a domain controller, from a domain controller and for DHCP. We're gonna do with this one first, and we're basically gonna promote this server as a domain controller. So when we're gonna click on that, and here we have a couple options. First option is add a domain controller to an existing domain. Second is add a new domain to an existing forest, and add a new forest. The difference between a domain and a forest, well, basically a forest, if I'm going to explain this in an actual way, a forest is like a big area, you know, in real life, forests, big jungles. Domains are a part of the forest, so basically you can imagine a forest as a tree. Domains are like the branches of the tree. There can be multiple domains in a forest, but there can only be one forest. There can be possibilities where we have two different forests and we can link them together. But for us, we're going to keep one forest, we're going to add a new forest, and the domain name we're going to give this is, I'm just going to say my name, HAGGARWAL.ca. So we're going to add a new forest, and inside the forest it will create the first domain, which is, well, whatever the first domain is, it would be that one, hsugarworld.ca. Here we have some more options. So this is a backward compatible option. So we want to configure this because what happens is sometimes, because we are running the latest version of server, many companies are still not running the latest versions. Some are using server 2016, some are still using 2012. So this is like a backward compatibility with those servers that are already in the environment. You see domain functionality level Windows Server 2016 and forest functionality level Windows Server 2016. So in case, like I said before, we have some connectors to other domain or other forests, and those forests are functioning at say 2016, we can't configure a new forest and link it to that forest if we launch a new forest in like say 2022, right? Which is not even an option right now because it just doesn't want, it just won't work. Another option we have is this one here. So specify some domain controller capabilities. Now we have a domain name system DNS server. We can configure that later. Not right now. We have a global catalog, and this is another option, which is the read-only domain controller, in case we want to keep backups. And let's say I launch another domain controller, another server, and I check off this domain controller box, read-only domain controller box. It will only read from other servers, but it will never actually be sending on configurations. Or actually, that's the wrong analogy. Um, Read-only domain control means that it will only be able to show configurations to other servers. Well, that's one of the two. So right now we're going to set a DSRM password because we need this. So I'm just going to set it. And next, we don't need to create a DNS delegation right now. The NetBIOS name is just going to show up right now. We're going to wait for this to load. As you can see, each check all. Next. We don't change anything here. These are all database folders, log files. We don't want to change it. We have the options. We don't need to worry about that. Now it's going to do a prerequisite check just to make sure that we have everything that we need. And it will give us a check mark, or it will tell us what is not configured. So when you configured that before, we could configure something else. So right now we got the check mark, says all prerequisites checked pass successfully. Click installation to begin installation. So I'm going to install our installation. It's going to take a couple of minutes to configure this as a domain controller. So I will come back when this is done installing. So when it's done installing, it will give us this option, which says this, hey, the installation is successful and we're going to be signed out shortly, which is just going to complete the configuration. So you see it's restarting now, and when we come back up, it's going to show us as a domain controller. So I'm just going to wait for that to show up again. Also, I haven't started any of the other servers yet. So before we move on to the other sites, we should actually turn on our devices. But let's just configure this first. Actually, I might just go and start all of these. Because this will just take some time to boot up the routers. Okay, so we're back here. We're gonna log into our controller, our domain controller. And it's gonna take some while actually because they first boot up after being configured as a domain controller. As you can see, HRL site administrator, that's fine. And we're gonna log in as administrator. Usually the first time after promoting it as a domain controller takes a couple minutes actually. So we're back here and it's not installing, and if we were to go actually and check, we can check by going to users and computers, and you would see that this would be listed as a domain controller. So let's check. Also want to run CMD. So we're here in our server, our users and computers, and you see our domain hogoogle.ca. And if I just expand it now, and you see the options of domain controllers, and we're just gonna go ahead and can click on. You see we have Site1 DC. Let's check the properties here of this PC. You see you have the operating system. You have number of domain controllers. Um, Location managed by, if you want to put a managed by name, if you want to put a location of where this is, where in the world this is in, you could all do that here. We also have some users. We can see, these are all the default users. You see we have an administrator user, we have a guest user, so we have some schema admins, root and domain controller admins, remote access service and IAS services, some user accounts that we don't really need to worry about very much. But yeah, this is basically what the domain controller is. Uh, we're gonna talk about this later. Actually, what we're gonna go do is we're gonna make an admin account for ourselves. So I'm just gonna copy the administrator account and I'm gonna name this myself. So Hitesh Agarwal. And I'm gonna say my domain name is hitesh at hogoogle.ca. Confirm my password. So next time I log in, I can log in with my own user and will still have access to all of the administrator privileges. So here we are in the CMD, so I'm just going to check some stuff. So first we're going to do host name. We have Site1 DC. I'm going to check ipconfig and 40.250. And I'm going to try pinging my other PCs or other servers. 140.250. I have ping and 240.250. Just to make sure I can connect to them. Okay, so I can. And I can talk to them. So site 2, when I go to site 2, I'm going to configure the same thing again. I'm going to go to a server manager. And this time we're going to join the domain instead of creating a new forest. So wait for the server manager to install or open.
Your dog. Why are you texting me?
Okay, so we have our server. Okay, so we might as well just do it on this PC then. Site 3DC. Okay. Okay, so we are back here in our SRVDC3 or Site3DC, and now instead of adding a new forest like we did before, we're going to add a domain controller to an existing forest, to existing domain. Sorry, not a domain, not a domain, just adding a domain controller to an existing domain. So once this is done loading, we will add in our domain name and the credentials to authorize and authenticate that we are adding, that we do want to add this server to the domain. So it should be done loading now. So here we're just going to add our name, so h.raw.ca, and we have administrator stritor and raw.ca. I'm going to approve and we hit next. It should take up and it should authorize with the primary server. Okay, so let's actually check the domain here. Sometimes what it does changes its name. So actually, let's try this. Okay, so this is not domain. So now we're going to add our Site3DC into our ADDS domain. Before I was trying out some systems that I've worked with before, and I saw that we were not able to connect to our ADDS domain because we didn't have created sites yet. So I was testing, and what I tested was that if you see our site 2, it wasn't joining in. wasn't joining to my ADDS domain. So what I did was I went ahead and I got this console. It also installs when you install ADDS as a role. And this console, Active Directory Sites and Services, is basically for us to create multiple sites. And I've created 3 sites, Site 1, Site 2, and Site 3. So let me actually demonstrate how to use this. So first we need to create a new site. So we create a new site and we say Site 4. We say Site 4. And I'm going to pick first link. We can change this link later, and we have to change this link later as well. So we create a site, and the next thing we need to do is we need to assign some subnets to this site. So I'm just going to say a new subnet, and I'm going to select site 4. I'm going to say 192, so 192.168. Let's see, 192.168. I've done 10, 20, 30. Let's do 254.0/24. So okay, and it's going to update its own site list, and you see we have a new subnet 254. Let's head to site 4. And the next thing we need to do is we need to assign a link type to it. So let's say I want it to be from site 1 to site 4. And here, let's say site 1 to site 4. And create a link, and we go here. And to change site link, just click on this, and we say site 1, site 4. And if you remember previously we had this, we just remove site 4 here. So remove site 4, and you see we have site 1, and then this way we can communicate with our main ADDS. We're not going to need site 4 because we don't have a site 4, but if we had more than one site, we can obviously have more sites here. So after I did this, I was able to join my site 2 domain controller to the domain. As you can see, it is a part of domain. And to confirm that it's a part of domain, you can just go here in Active Directory Users and Computers, and you can see site 2 DC here, which is this PC over here. You can also see it's on site 2. So now we're going to go and add the site 3 DC. So see domain was hagarwal.ca. Let's change credentials because we need to supply an administrator account. So admin administrator at .ca. And if you click next, it's going to check against its records. It's going to check with the site 1, and we're going to join the domain. So after we supply the credentials, it would automatically move on to the next step. And for it to actually move on to the next steps, it's going to look, or it's going to communicate, or try to communicate with the DNS server of site 1, DC. So when you're first setting up, I think I forgot to do this part. And the part was that we forgot to assign a DNS server to all the NICs. But this is very important when you do it, because I was troubleshooting this, I think last week, and it took me like 3 hours to figure out what was going on. So here I have the IP address of site 1 as a preferred DNS server, and after that is a DNS alternate DNS server as 127.0.0.1. This is a loopback address, which just means that, hey, if this server does not work, look into your own DNS server. So we need to do this part in order to connect to the domain, which I had done now. So here now we just say our password, same as before. Next, and just going to go through the process of checking all informations. Check if the password is right. We do not set up any DNS delegation right now. We don't need to set up any DNS options. So we just wait. Usually it's faster when we're on an actual VM machine, but this is like very virtualized, so it is taking its time. Plus it only has one processor. A normal server would usually have two processors. So any domain controller, I prefer site 1, so I'm just going to say let me go to site 1, and this is going to set a database folder, log files folder, sysvol folder, and I'm just going to say next. We don't change anything here. If you have seen the previous part where we set up site 1, we just click next, prerequisite check. It's going to do a prerequisite check, and after it's done its prerequisite check, we can start promoting the server as a domain controller. So we just click on install, and it's going to promote itself. It's going to go through the installation process, and after that is done, we will have a server or another domain controller in our domain. So after this is done, we see we have all these servers. Now the next thing we're going to do after this configuration, we're going to set up a DHCP server. So previously we set up DHCP servers as our, I think, SW1 and SW2. We're going to remove those configurations from SW1 and SW2, and we're going to make each Windows server as a DHCP server. And I will also explain how DHCP works, because I think last time I didn't fully explain DHCP. I just brushed over it. But I will go over what DHCP is. There are 4 processes in DHCP. I will also explain those. And we'll look at some Wireshark captures as well. But so let's just make sure we have this working properly. So when it's done installing it, will you get this sign that you're about to sign down, because it's going to move over to the domain user account. So once it's done restarting, you're gonna see. Let's see if you can reload this and see if you can refresh and see site 3 here. Now maybe later we'll see site 3. We see site 3 DC here, and we also see site 2 DC and then site 1 DC in our sites. So we have some information about this server here on our side 1. So let's see if it would show up here or not. It should start showing up now. Just reload this DNS server, maybe. Or reload this. C40 and 140. Wait for this to fully start operating. So we're back here and we see, it's reloaded. So we just Control Alt Delete in. The other way we can tell if it's become a domain controller or not, if you see it here in this section, we see site 3DC and site 3. So it has become a domain controller. And if we log in with our profile, it works. And there we have it. We have a site 3DC in our server. We have all the 3 domain controllers managing our domain. We're going to move over to DNS, and we don't need a GP. We don't need this console right now. This is for different purposes. But here we have a site 3DC, and we also have another record 240.50. So we see we will have both of these records here, which is exactly what we want. So maybe if this doesn't log in, that's fine, but for now it's fine. Later, when we start configuring, the first boot up always takes some time. The first boot up after becoming a domain controller always takes a long time because it's reading from other servers and it's authenticating the user account that we're logging in with. So the first time we do it takes some time, but that's fine. So next video, we're going to start working with DHCP. I'll explain the process of DHCP, and I would also look at DNS. Right now we only have DNS configured on site 1, but going forward we're going to configure DNS on site 2 and site 3 DC. So now you see it's down. We'll work with this later. We'll work with this next video. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.